Kate thought the hardest part of leaving her abusive husband would be gathering the courage to get out of the house. But in the months since she left, her hope of building a new life has dwindled. The thing she needs most seems out of reach.
I can't try to find a job, I can't better myself, I can't be safe if I don't have a home.
The women CBC News spoke to have been in transition houses for months, and not for lack of trying. The waitlist for public housing can take years, and second-stage housing for women fleeing intimate partner violence is full across the province. Then there's Nova Scotia's housing crisis. As housing becomes more expensive and harder to find, sector workers say vulnerable people are being left behind. Some are considering going back to their abusers because they don't know what else to do. They're pleading with the provincial government for help.
I think the provincial government isn't taking it seriously, the lack of affordable housing. When you have to turn women away and send them back, maybe to their deaths, to an abusive husband in an abusive situation after they've found the courage to leave, and just because we cannot find housing.
With transition houses full, women are staying for upwards of 6 months, some for more than a year.
Our mandate for all our transition houses is about 6 weeks, but we're finding that increasingly women are needing to stay in our shelter for months while they try to find housing, because again, it can take 16 applications before they're finally accepted.
De St. Croix says the 11 transition houses run by her organization are often at capacity. This can mean turning women away.
The risks include women becoming homeless, and often that is hidden from our view. So we do have women who live on the streets, but also it can look like couch surfing or trading sex for a bed.
And this is happening in smaller towns too, not just in the city.
Are now seeing women and their children being in shelter for 3 to 6 months as they try to find somewhere affordable and appropriate for housing, and it's challenging.
Kate had a big house in the country with her young child, her husband, and a family dog. But psychological abuse and coercive control were just below the surface. When she decided to take her daughter and go, she called a transition house, but it was full. She waited 2 weeks in fear until she got the call. They had a bed for her. Leaving gave her freedom, but it came with difficulty. Even working with a housing support worker, she can't find anything she can afford.
After I pay my monthly bills, I have $1,200. So there, I can get an apartment, but I can't feed my daughter. There's no money for groceries, I can't have gas, there's no money to get her back and forth from daycare. So it's just, I see nowhere to go. I'm going to be stuck there. I'm going to have to spend Christmas there.
Nova Scotia's housing minister says people fleeing domestic violence are put at the top of the public housing waitlist, but they still have to wait for an available unit, and this takes more than a year. He says the government has been investing in affordable housing and hasn't ruled out building new public housing.
I mean, we're doing all kinds of things, but Nicola, we know we need to do more, and especially for victims fleeing family violence. Our heart goes out to them.
The women CBC News spoke with say they're happy to be safe, but living in a transition house is hard on them. Sleep doesn't come easily, and it's hard to relax in a place with little privacy. Kate says some days her daughter struggles.
One night, she had thrown everything from all the drawers and all the cases on the bed. She's yelling she wants to go home. So eventually, I just explained to her that Mommy and Daddy have separate homes. And for right now, the transition home is Mama's home.
But her biggest worry is losing custody of her child because of her living situation.
It can be difficult with children because a transition house is temporary emergency housing, and oftentimes it's deemed not suitable long-term for children by the Department of Community Services, for example. So as women struggle to find housing outside of the transition houses, it can potentially lead to issues with child custody.
Morgan Manzer, a child protection lawyer with Nova Scotia Legal Aid, says most of his cases can be connected to the lack of affordable housing.
Family violence is pervasive in our society, and now with this housing crisis, there's an intersection of those two issues. So on a weekly or almost daily basis, we're talking about folks who have experienced family violence or intimate partner violence and are having difficulties securing long-term, stable, affordable housing.
A spokesperson for the Department of Community Services says the goal is to look out for the child's best interests. This means working with transition houses to try to find solutions that allow the child to stay with their parent. Mary, another woman CBC News spoke with, is in her 60s and left her husband of more than 30 years, escaping physical and psychological abuse. She's now on income assistance and makes $950 a month. She's been in a transition house for 6 months.
The housing support workers say their hands are tied. They can't make these apartments appear. They can't. They do the best they can and they show us, but everything on the list starts at like $1,400, you know? But how are we can't even apply for that because we don't have enough money.
Mary says as time passes, she's starting to feel like she has no choice but to go back to her husband.
It's possible of maybe moving in with someone else, but you don't know that person. Are you going to be safer there than where you are? You know, I just don't see an end. I think I'm going to have to go back. I don't know what else I can do.